The silver training ship Argentum Vex floated silently in orbit around a small blue star. On its upper deck stood the most feared room in the entire academy, the torture resistance chamber. It was not built to hurt. It was built to test. It used sound, temperature, gravity shifts, illusions, and endless mental pressure. Cadets from many different alien races had entered that room. None had lasted more than 30 minutes. The idea was simple. Only the strongest of mind and body could endure it. But so far the chamber had defeated them all, and now it was the humans' turn. The new cadet Alina Rowe walked down the corridor in her gray cadet uniform. She was only 19, one of the youngest humans ever accepted into the Galactic Alliance Training Academy. She was not the tallest, not the fastest, and not the strongest, but there was something about her calm smile that made other cadets whisper. She had grown up on a busy human colony, working on cargo docks. She was used to noise, stress, and long shifts. And most of all, she was used to not getting enough sleep. When the instructors called her name, she stepped forward without hesitation. Cadet Rowe, the chief instructor, a tall insectoid creature with 6 shining eyes, looked down at her. "Do you understand the purpose of this test?" "Yes, instructor," Elena said simply. "You may quit at any time," the instructor warned. "No one will judge you." Elena shrugged lightly. "I'll keep that in mind." The audience, behind the thick glass of the observation deck, dozens of alien cadets gathered to watch. The tall green Rornak warriors who could lift tanks had failed the chamber in under 20 minutes. The small blue-skinned Clerians, who had excellent hearing, lasted only 5 before the noise broke them. No one believed the human could last much longer. "She'll scream in 10 minutes, one Rornak whispered. "She'll beg to leave," a Clerian added. The instructor tapped the control panel. The door slid open with a smooth hiss. Inside the chamber, Elena stepped inside. The walls were smooth, black, and slightly warm. There was no furniture, only a single soft mat on the floor. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The test began. At first, nothing happened. Just silence. Elena sat on the mat and crossed her legs. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then the chamber activated. The lights flickered. The air temperature rose sharply, then dropped just as fast. A low hum started, so low it was felt in the bones more than heard. For most cadets, this was enough to create panic, but Elena had grown up beside noisy engines on a cargo ship. To her, this was nothing more than background noise. She stretched out on the mat. "Nice and warm," she whispered to herself as the temperature rose again. When the floor began to tilt gently, she rolled over to her side and made herself comfortable. Confusion in the control room. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. "She's still inside," someone said in disbelief. "She hasn't even stood up," another cadet muttered. The instructor frowned. They increased the chamber's difficulty. Gravity shifted randomly, pressing down hard one moment and then becoming almost weightless the next. A whispering voice echoed through the room, an artificial simulation meant to make the mind restless. It spoke in dozens of alien tongues, but Elena? She yawned. The whispering voices reminded her of the ventilation system in her childhood bedroom. The gravity shifts were no worse than the shaky old cargo lifts on the docks. She grabbed the small emergency blanket tucked under the mat, something no one had ever had time to use before, and pulled it over herself. Within minutes, her breathing slowed. Her body relaxed. "She's asleep," a cadet gasped. "The room tries." Again, the chamber was not used to being ignored. It increased its pressure. Lights flashed bright, then dark, then bright again. The air filled with a strange metallic scent. The sound changed from whispers to sharp clicks, like something crawling in the walls. Elena turned on her back and pulled the blanket over her ears. "I've slept through louder," she thought sleepily. Back home, there had been repair crews banging metal pipes outside her room every morning. At the 30-minute mark, alien cadets began to look nervous. No one had ever made it this far without screaming or begging to leave. At the 1-hour mark, some were leaning forward, unable to believe what they were seeing. The instructor tapped the console again. The floor began to vibrate gently. Elena rolled over again, still asleep. The whisper inside the chamber, the AI tried something new. A soft voice filled the air, one that was meant to speak directly to the mind. "You are alone," it whispered. "Everyone has left you. No one is coming." Many cadets had broken at this point. Loneliness was a weapon sharper than sound. But Elena's mind didn't respond the way the AI expected. She was used to long, quiet nights on the docks where she was the only human awake. To her, silence and solitude weren't scary. They were familiar friends. She turned over, hugged the blanket closer, and continued to sleep. 2 hours later, the instructor was now tapping the control panel again and again. The data was clear. Her heart rate was steady, her temperature normal. She was in deep, comfortable sleep. The Rornak warrior who had lasted 19 minutes slammed his huge fist against the glass. How? How is she doing this? She must have taken something, another cadet said. Some kind of sedative. But the medical reading showed nothing. Elena was clean. She was just sleeping. Humans are strange, whispered a Clerian cadet, shaking his head. The rumors begin. By hour 3, the training deck was crowded. Cadets who weren't even scheduled for training had rushed to the observation window. Some thought it was a trick. Others thought the chamber was broken, but the AI system ran a full diagnostic. Everything was working. Everything was at full intensity, and the human girl was still asleep. She might break the record, someone whispered. She already did, another replied. The instructor, usually calm and composed, was now rubbing his forehead with 2 hands. Increase everything to maximum, he ordered. The lights flashed like storms. The chamber shook slightly. The noise became a layered, chaotic mess of sound meant to keep the mind awake. Elena snored softly. The 8-hour mark. When the system finally reached its limit, the AI shut itself down to prevent overheating. The lights returned to normal. The hum disappeared. Gravity stabilized. The door opened with a hiss. The instructors entered cautiously. Elena blinked awake, rubbing her eyes. Is it over? She asked, sitting up. The insectoid instructor stared at her. You have slept. She tilted her head. Yeah, the floor was warm. It was kind of nice. You slept, he repeated as if the concept was too strange to understand. 8 hours, another instructor added. You slept for 8 hours straight in the most intense psychological chamber ever built. Elena stood, brushed off her uniform, and gave a small smile. I've slept through worse. The shockwave through the academy. The news spread through the academy faster than light. Humans, a young and relatively new species in the Galactic Alliance, were considered fragile. They didn't have the claws of the Rornak, the speed of the Clerians, or the mental networks of the Vinari. But now, every cadet knew a human girl had done the impossible. She hadn't fought the chamber. She hadn't resisted it. She had ignored it completely. Alien cadets whispered in the halls. They say she didn't flinch. She just slept. No one has ever done that before, and for the first time, many began to look at humanity with new eyes. Elena's answer later that evening, some cadets approached her in the mess hall. A tall Rornak warrior slammed his tray on the table. How did you do it? He demanded. Elena looked up from her soup. Do what? The chamber, the warrior said. Everyone breaks. You didn't, she shrugged. Back home, my room was next to the engine room. If you can sleep through a cargo ship engine, you can sleep through anything. The Clerian cadet next to him tilted her head. So it wasn't training? Nope, Elena said with a grin. It was just Tuesday. The table fell silent. Then someone laughed. Then another. Soon, the entire mess hall was filled with quiet chuckles. A new reputation from that day on. Whenever an alien cadet felt nervous about a mission, someone would whisper, Remember the human girl? She slept through the chamber. It became a kind of legend, not of strength, not of weapons, but of something far stranger, human stubbornness. The chamber was still there, waiting for the next cadet. But everyone knew its record would stand for a long time. Epilogue. The instructor's report later that night. The chief instructor filed his report to the Alliance Command. Subject: Cadet Elena Rowe, human. Duration inside torture resistance chamber, 8 hours. 3 minutes psychological response, none. Subject was unconscious, natural sleep. Conclusion: Human resilience may rely less on resistance and more on adaptation. Recommend further observation of species behavior. This may present an advantage in future interstellar operations. He looked up from the screen, still confused, and muttered softly, Humans are different. Outside his window, the Argentum Vex continued its slow orbit around the star. And somewhere in her bunk, Elena Rowe was once again fast asleep,